Now once you get them all marked, go to your sewing machine, and on each side of the line you drew, 1/4 of an inch out, you're going to sew a stitch. So if you see here on this one, I drew my line and then I sewed 1/4 of an inch stitch on the left and the right side of my center line. You can chain these through your sewing machine just like you chain anything else. And then once we get them all through, we can just take our scissors and snip them apart. Now what we're going to do is we're going to separate this with our rotary cutter into 2 units. So we're going to take our ruler and our rotary cutter, position it back on the line that we drew, and that's where we're going to be cutting. Again, make sure that we let the point hang out just a wee bit, just enough to allow for the width of our rotary blade. And this is going to give us 2 half square triangle units. This is why you only needed to cut 24. We're actually getting 2 for each set we make. 2 times 24 is 48. And that's how many we'll need for our block. Now we're going to go to our ironing board and we're going to set the stitch with our hot iron and then press the seam towards our print. Go ahead and do that step now, and then we'll come back and learn how to square off our point. Great, hopefully you got those ironed and they should look just like this. Now if you notice, you have these little kind of dangly, people call them either rabbit ears or dog ears or some little cutesy name for it, but basically it's just the excess of the seam that's hanging past the finished size of our block. So what we're going to do is just kind of snip those away. Remember, we're always trying to eliminate bulk, and we don't need them for anything. When you go to snip them though, you kind of got to be careful because it's very easy to miscalculate and cut too close. So what I like to do is just take my scissors and actually cut them just a hair's breadth, bigger than the actual edge of the seam. So in other words, cut it just a little fat and go ahead and snip those off because we won't be needing them for the next step. And it just goes ahead and eliminates them now. Go ahead and do that on all of your pieces. You know, one of the questions that we get asked the most often is how do you calculate fabric when I'm doing a quilt? And the more times you calculate something, the easier it becomes, just like anything we do. But we do have a couple things in the store that we use constantly to help us. One is a calculator. The great thing about quilting math is it's pretty much quarters until you get to 7/8 of an inch, and then it gets a little hairy. But one of the tools we use, and you'll find it right at our cash register counter, because when customers come in and need help with figuring out how much backing or how much binding or how to cut a set-in triangle, we go to this book right here. This is a book we sell. It's the all-in-one quilter's reference tool, and it has great illustrations. It helps you calculate page by page for different things. Even if you've got a bunch of blocks you've made and you don't know how to lay them out in a number that'll work, it'll give you the dimensions based on the size block and all of the quilting math that you need. So if you don't have one of these in your quilt book library, definitely come into the shop and grab one. We try to keep them in. I know there's some out on the shelf now, but definitely add this book. It's very, very reasonably priced. I think it's like $16 or $17. And if you're one of our club members or a member of a local guild, of course you get a discount off of that. So definitely add this. It'll help so much with your quilting math, and it'll kind of take a lot of the guesswork out. Although we're always glad to help you. You're always welcome to come in and we'll help you with your quilting measurements. But if it's midnight, we're not there. So this is a great little tool to have. Go ahead and get your little dog ears clipped off, and then come back and we're going to show you how to put the center portion of block together for clue number 7. Now we're going to take the 2 units we've learned to make and we're going to put them together to form the center portion of our second block. What we want to do is take 2 of our half square triangle blocks and place them so that they create an hourglass shape in the middle. Then take 2 of the 3.5 inch background squares and place them at the alternating corners. We're going to sew this into rows. So this top section is going to be 1 row, and then the bottom section is going to be the lower portion. We're making a 4 patch, so you'll be able to use your little spiral technique that we taught you earlier, and you're going to press to the larger piece of fabric, which in this case will be our background. So go ahead and turn your pieces right sides together and do your stitch on the side in the middle right here, and go ahead and get those sewn, pressed to the larger piece, which will be our large background square. Then we can nest these upper and lower units together and do our spiral seam and finish this center block portion. You will need to make 24 of the center block portion. Go ahead and do that, get all this work done, then we're going to show you in a few minutes how to put the rest of block 7 together. Now what we want to do is we want to gather the different units that we've made to make our second block. You're going to need the 4 patch units you made with your 2 print colors. You're going to need the bars that we made using our background and our darker print. And then we're going to need to have the unit we just completed. So we're going to lay it out so that it's going to be sewn together in 3 rows. This will be the top row, this will be the center row, and this will be the bottom row. You're simply going to take your 4 patch units and make sure that the pinks are almost making like an X, as you can see here. We're going to sew these to each end of our bar units, on the top and also on the bottom. You want to press these towards the inside. On your center row, you're going to add the 2 side bars to each side of our center block, and we're going to press out. The bottom row is going to be pressed the same direction as the top. This will allow all 3 rows of our block unit to nest together. Go ahead and work on your tops, bottoms, and middles, and then nest your rows together, and we'll show you how it comes out in just a minute. So how did your block come together? Hopefully you didn't have any problems nesting seams if we pressed everything and sewed everything the right direction. This is what your finished product will look like. You need to make 24 blocks that look just like this. Hopefully you have them all done by now, but if not, you've got a week or so to work on them. Go ahead and get them done. So when you're done, you'll have 24 of this block and 24 of the first block that we made. It's going to be some exciting ideas on how to put the 2 together to form a quilt, or to separate them into 2 separate quilts. We'll see you back here next week. Have a great time sewing.